We are live.
We're live.
Yes, we are live. Good morning, everybody, or evening, or middle of the night, wherever you are. Um, we're happy to be here with our second Google Hangout. And today we have Hal Grossman with us, who is an associate professor of violin at the University of Oklahoma. He has also taught at the Interlochen Arts Academy, as well as at the National High School Institute of Music here at Northwestern in the summer when we had that here, and then that's where I met him. He is going to be talking, he's the creator of the Grossman method, and he's going to be talking about that and explaining what it is, and it has to do with kinesthetic awareness in violin and viola playing and teaching. So we're very happy to have him. And as well as, and now Henry has just joined us, as well as our team. So I am going to hand this over to Hal. So he's going to talk to us, and then you can write in your questions, and he will answer and demonstrate, and hopefully we'll get to do some of these body stretches and everything as well. Yeah. And then save your questions about maybe the past three. If you have any questions about the past weeks, you can save those for the last 15 minutes, and we'll answer those questions as they come up. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Hal Grossman.
Hey, Stacia, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here and talk to you about the Grossman method. So, like as you mentioned, the Grossman method is an applied lesson structure that involves kinesthetic awareness into violin and viola training that helps to alleviate stress, reduce anxiety, and prevent injury. So violinists and violists in the method learn how to recognize muscle tension as it can creep into their playing, and then it's a course of study that helps to recognize when that happens and to alleviate it before it turns into something big and ugly and something we can't control. So the way that this whole thing got started was I used to have students that would come to my studio already in pain with injuries or carpal tunnel or just overuse syndromes. And so I started doing some stretches and just little 1 or 2 minute things that we could do in the lessons that seemed to help them right away. And it seemed to have immediate effects. And so over time, I kind of built up a stockpile of these, and it turned into a workshop that we used to do in studio class, just like a stretch class, actually. And then that turned into a workshop that I'm going to take you guys through a little bit later, which is called No Pain, All Gain, a healthy way to play and stretch for you and your students. But the Grossman method itself is an applied lesson structure, and but the evolution of that came through that workshop and another workshop that I've started called Breathe Your Way to Better Playing, which incorporates using the breath and the bow, and it's kind of a kinesthetic way to play musically, to play in a more relaxed manner, and to kind of combat some stage fright issues.
Sounds great.
So, the first thing I'd like to do is I have my student Erica here with me. And at the heart of the Grossman method is the concept that musicians are athletes. And to that end, musicians have to stretch and warm up and cool down and do all these things, just like the football players do, just like the baseball players do. Instead of using the big muscle groups like they do, we use the smaller muscle groups. But they still require the same kind of setup. But why don't you grab your violin? Your bow. And you turn around. Can you see her okay? Come back, come back. Yeah, okay. So the basis of this is kind of what you teach is so great, and that is that the teacher needs to be very much aware of the relationship of the head and the shoulder and the positioning of the violin. And so as you can see here with Erica, this is what happens. We start to shorten this part of our neck and lengthen this part of our neck. We hike up this shoulder and then we start to round this part of the back. Okay? And so it's this kind of static position that can cause muscle pain. You can put this down for a second. When we hold muscles static like that, they tend to ball up like this. And there's reduced blood flow through that muscle fiber. And the pain that a person feels is restricted blood flow. So the stretching and the whole way of training with the Grossman method is a way to open up those muscles and to allow blood flow to go easily through. Can you do that one more time? Yes. Stand. Come back just a little bit. Okay, good. So part of the training method in the workshop and also in the Grossman method is to do a little muscle identification. There is no athlete, high school or college athlete of a serious nature that doesn't have an understanding of the muscles that they're using. And I think that's an important thing for musicians to know. It gives us a language to talk with each other about, and it also lets them start to understand where the source of the pain could be coming from. So in this case, we're going to talk about the trapezius muscles and the rhomboid muscles. We're going to talk about levator scapula. Then face that, Erica. We're going to talk about pectoralis major here. We bring our arms in front of us, and then I will do a little bit of core work as well. So you can put your violin down. You turn around and face it. Okay, good. All right. So Erica is a graduate student here at OU, and she came here because she was having some physical pain and some issues in her playing, and we've been working pretty hard on this. So actually already Erica looks better, but she very much was hiking up her shoulder and was feeling a lot of levator pain, pain from the levator scapula here, and then just sort of this whole shoulder area, this whole shoulder area girdle was giving her trouble. And those are the kinds of things that we need to be aware of. So, okay. So, you want to do some stretches that we do in the No Pain All Gain workshop?
Yes. Yeah, that sounds great. So we'll do some stretches, and then people can start writing in with their questions they might have for you. I would think that this is a big hot topic. So yes, that sounds great.
Okay. So in the workshop, and I should mention that really that's how the teaching method got started. The applied lesson structure got started through those two workshops. In the No Pain All Gain, one thing that we do is we talk about muscle identification. We just do a little anatomy, and then a little biomechanics, how those muscles work, and then we get into some pre and post stretching and warm-ups, and we also do a little breath work. So, but we're not going to do that part yet. So we're just going to do the stretching thing. So if anyone wants to join us in this, I just need to put out there that you need to monitor your body, that this is not an exercise course, that these are just things that kind of help alleviate some issues that you may or may not be having. If we're doing something that doesn't feel comfortable to you, then you probably shouldn't do it right now. And like with any kind of exercise routine, you should always check with your doctor before doing anything. So,
should we stand or sit?
You should stand. It's more fun.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you see us both okay?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So one thing I'm going to take you through is something that I do with most of my students, and I feel like it always has great benefit, and it's something that I call airplane hanger, okay? And I have these ridiculous names for everything, but it's sort of fun. So airplane hanger, you just bring your arms up overhead, and then you come down in a slow and controlled manner. You can come up just as fast as you like, but you want to come down in a slow and controlled manner. If you feel like you're raising your shoulders excessively when you bring your arms up overhead, it might be more comfortable for you to make a Y or a V at the top of the motion. And if you're hearing any popping or clicking in your shoulders while you're doing this, that means that airplane hanger is like a really good thing for you to do. This is warming up that whole shoulder area it's bringing blood flow to everything, and it might be opening up some of the tight muscle fibers like that. Do you guys hear any popping or clicking in your shoulders when you were doing this?
No, not me.
You did?
I did.
Stacia, what did you say?
I said no.
That's because you're very healthy.
I hear mine too.
Of going back to yoga.
I know, that's right. That's right. And actually, I'm sort of glad you brought that up. This is not a yoga thing. It did come from my studies with yoga, and I am a certified yoga teacher. But between that and my biomechanics and anatomy studies, and I did do a little Feldenkrais study and Alexander technique. So this is kind of a confluence of a bunch of different styles. But specifically, it's because of a concern that I saw with my students. From 13 years old on up. So, okay, so airplane hanger, I probably do airplane hanger every day, and I probably do it with most of my students because it's a great stress reliever. Let's do bear hug. Bear hug is going to open up. Can you turn around? Bear hug, come back. Bear hug is going to open up the rhomboid muscles, which is the muscle group that goes between the shoulder blades, and the trapezius muscles here. Because we tend to round these muscles a lot and stretch them, we gotta need to keep the integrity. So come back, like this, yes. And so what we're gonna do is try to bring some strength and integrity back to that muscle group. So we're gonna do it 2 ways. We're gonna do it, the first way is to interlock your fingers like they're bear claws, good. And then put them behind your head. And then push back with your head and spread your elbows to the sides of the room. So basically what you're doing is you're squeezing your shoulder blades together. And hold that for just a couple seconds. Make sure you breathe through this. And then release. And then interlace your fingers the other way, or interlock your fingers the other way. Put them behind your head. Push back with your head. And bring your elbows to the sides of the room. Squeeze those shoulder blades together. Try to push them down your back as well. You're going to feel that you're definitely activating those rhomboid muscles. Good. And release. Bring your arms down slowly because there's a lot of blood flow. And then the other way we can do that is bring your arms out in front of you. Take your right hand, tap your left shoulder. Take your left hand, come under your right arm and grab your shoulder or shoulder blade. Lift up with the bottom arm. Lower your shoulder blades down your back at the same time. And you should feel a nice stretch in the traps and rhomboids back there.
It feels great.
Yeah, I know, I love this. It's called bear hug. You should give yourself a nice big bear hug. Okay, then release. And we'll do the other side. Take your left hand, tap your right shoulder. Take your right hand, come under. Lift up with your left arm. Lower your shoulder blades down your back. Make sure you're breathing. That's good. You guys look good. You must be very healthy at Northwestern University. And then release your arms, bring them down slowly. You definitely be feeling some warmth in your shoulder areas right now.
Yeah, it's good.
Good. Okay. I'm not going to really tell you what it's called. And then we're going to do... Oh yeah, every time I do this, everyone always asks me for like, they feel pain in their forearms and all that. So the forearms, we have extenders and flexors in our arms, and this is the eye of the elbow. And so let me show you a nice way to do this. Take your right hand out in front of you, take your left hand, and put it sort of on the part closer to your wrist. Don't pull on your wrist, and don't pull on your fingers. And then take the eye of your elbow and rotate it up to the ceiling. And you should feel a nice stretch here. You can move the arm up or down, left or right. You might feel it in a different place. That's good. And let's do the other side just because we have to be balanced. So take the left hand out and down. Make the eye of the elbow go up to the ceiling. And again, you can go up or down. left or right. Just find the spot that you go, ah, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll know. And release. And then we have to do the other side. Take your right hand out in front of you. Take your left hand at the palm of your right hand. Leave your thumb free. Your thumb has a different function than your other fingers. So again, bring the eye of your elbow up to the ceiling. And again, you can go up or down, left or right, wherever it feels. Sometimes people feel this in their pinky. Sometimes people just feel it on this part of their hand, whatever. And then we'll do the other side. I once gave this no pain, all day workshop to a conductor workshop for a bunch of conductors. And they had like huge forearm and hand issues. I was like completely surprised about that. Yeah, good. And release. And let me show you another one that a lot of people do. Let me just tweak it for you a little bit. So we're going to work on the triceps and a little bit more of the shoulders. Take your right hand and touch the nape of your neck. You can do it with me. And then take your left hand and grab your elbow and push back with your head. So a lot of people bring the elbow very close to their ear, and that's okay, but I think for musicians it's better to keep some space between your ear and your shoulder. It sort of respects the integrity of that shoulder area, and as upper string players, we need to be very careful about that. So, and try to if you bring the elbow more to the side of the room, you'll get just a little bit different feeling, but I think it respects the shoulder area a little bit more. Bring your arms up overhead. We'll do the other side. Take your left hand, touch the nape of your neck. Come make the grab with your right, push back with your head, and just try to get a little space between your ear and your shoulder. And breathe. Are we breathing?
Yes. Breathing.
You don't look like you're breathing. Okay, then bring your arms down. And then we're going to do the chest, right? Yeah. Okay, so and then we'll just do one chest thingamajiggy. So interlace your fingers behind you. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. And then you guys probably know this. You probably do it all the time. So what I see is a lot of people do this motion, but you want to bring your wrists together. This respects the shoulder muscles. This brings more integrity to our shoulders. This is a weaker way of doing it. So interlace your fingers behind you and pull away. You're not going to come very far from your body, but you should feel a really nice stretch here in the pectoralis major area, which gets super tight on us. It can be super tight. And release. And then interlace your fingers the other way. If your left pinky was on the bottom, put your right pinky on the bottom. And then pull away. You should feel a nice stretch. Lower your shoulder blades down your back at the same time. Try not to arch your back. Good. And release. Yeah. Again, like I was showing with Erica. Okay. So can you air violin for us right now? So the pec muscles bring our arms in front of us. And so both of them can get really, really tight. And so that stretch that we just did is a way to open up those arm muscles, those shoulder muscles, like the pec muscles, like that. Right. We do a little bit of core work. We do a little bit of seating. We do some hand stuff.
What kind of core work do you do?
What kind of core work? Okay. Well, I have learned that because there's so much activity up here when we're playing all the time, that you actually have to have a pretty strong core. You know, the muscles around your obliques and abdominal muscles you have to be strong enough. Probably a lot of you guys have seen students that when they play, they arch their back like this, they round their shoulders. it's because they're not lifting up here with the core. And as I was showing you with Erica, the thing is when you collapse your stomach like that and round your back, it can cause a lot of pain in this upper body area. So I've learned that this is like very important to do this, and it kind of stabilizes you for all this activity that's going to happen up here. So one thing that we do is something that I call washing machine. And have you done washing machine with me? Okay. Washing machine works the internal and external oblique muscles. And so the purpose that, I can do this with you. The purpose of the oblique muscles is to bend to the left and to the right, and bend forward and back, and twist to the left and twist to the right. That's what the oblique muscles do. So when we're stabilizing this, this can get really tight. So washing machine is spreading your legs a little wider than hip distance apart, and if you put a slight bend into your knees, if you take your arms and tuck them into your sides, you're just going to start rotating left to right, but you want to keep your lower body as stationary as possible. If this feels pretty easy and relaxed to you, you can take your arms and bring them parallel to the floor, and you'll get a wider rotation. And if that feels really easy and comfortable for you, you can straight arm it, and you'll get an even wider rotation on either side. If you try to do 8 to 10 rotations on each side to get a nice loosening up of those oblique muscles. And release. But especially with high school students, and even like freshmen in college or something like that, I mean, I think it's sort of a problem, or it's a little bit of a problem right now, where we don't support ourselves as much as we need to when you play the violin or the viola, or really any string instrument. I mean, it is an athletic endeavor, and we need to treat it that way so that we can be healthy and aligned throughout our careers. So that's why I do that one. And then all these stretches are on my website. I think everything we did is on my website at thegrossmanmethod.com, and you can see little video snippets.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Why don't we
Take a moment to see if there's questions.
Okay.
People are asking. Okay, who wants to start?
I can start.
Okay.
One of the questions is, would you say the Alexander technique has greatly assisted your playing and teaching?
I think that the Alexander technique is fantastic. I think that it really helps body alignment. I studied Alexander technique in terms of what it had to offer with regards to where I was going with the applied lesson structure. So I think that Alexander technique is a great thing and very beneficial. And I use some of that alignment into doing the course of study with the Grossman method.
And next.
I have a question here asking for a specific exercise to assist with loosening up the arm for vibrato. This individual is in their 40s and finds vibrato on the D and G strings more difficult, and they feel pain and restrictions in their arm and shoulder.
Okay, so this is a really good question. Assuming that there is no foundational setup problems with a person, the workshop is designed to open up tight muscles, okay? But it's assumed that you have proper alignment in your setup. So it sounds to me like there might potentially be a problem with that person's setup that's restricting the ability to vibrate. That's more like a one-on-one kind of situation. But anything that we've done, like airplane hanger, just to open up that shoulder area, airplane hanger is like a great thing. The bear hug thing is great. I've got a couple other ones.
Yeah, usually you want to make sure that the gross muscle, the larger muscles are relaxed. You have to look at the bigger picture.
Right.
I have one adult student, and I think he's in his early 60s, and he has posture issues, and he's very tight, and he has a hard time bringing his arm under, plays the viola, for the lower strings, and even for the upper strings. And I forever was saying, you need to stretch, you need to go to yoga, you need to, because these things are, you can't, there were many things he couldn't do. Anyway, he ended up going to a physical therapist.
Uh-huh.
He walked in, and his, and I hadn't seen him for a while, and his whole posture was different. He was able to stand up. So physical therapy helped him a lot. They gave him all kinds of exercises to do that helped as well. So that might be something. I would probably go to your site, how Grossman method, and try those exercises and see if they help you as well.
Right. This is good. I just want to be clear about it, that the Grossman method is an applied lesson structure. It's bringing in a student on a one-to-one basis over a long period of time and taking them through etudes, Kreutzer, Rode, Fiorillo, Gavinier, Tchaikovsky concerto, Sibelius concerto. It's all a training thing, but within it there's a somatic understanding and a learning of that while they're learning advanced technique. The workshop deals with tight muscles and all that, but they are, they're related, but they're separate.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Good. Next question.
There's a question from a violist. It's a little bit difficult without seeing the person one-on-one, but so this is a violist who plays on a center chin rest without a shoulder rest and has a knot in her right shoulder. So do you have some ideas about what might be, I mean, I feel like that's a popular place to have a knot. So what are your thoughts on how to deal with that?
Yeah, it's a super popular place to have a knot. A lot of times it's this levator scapula area, and I would say, gosh, I probably see 80% of students who jack that shoulder up and lock it into place. And so it's really important to open up the muscles up here. But there's a great levator scapula stretch, which I have to do sitting down, but I'll just explain to you. If you're stretching the left side of your levator scapula, this area, let me just point out the purpose of the levator scapula is to raise and lower your shoulders. Okay, so lots of people have levator scapula issues. Secretaries, people that work at the computer a lot, people who get nervous. I mean, it's kind of a fight or flight reaction. So if you stretch the levator scapula, if you sit in your chair and if you're stretching the left side, you take your left hand and you grab the bottom of the chair, the seat part of the chair, and you lean over to the right, bring your right ear to your right shoulder, and make sure that the left shoulder is actually angled back a little bit. And you should feel a really beautiful stretch here. It might radiate down to your arm as well, but that's just where it's tight. And then you do both sides. And next to airplane hanger, I probably do this levator scapula stretch a lot with my students. So that would be something to try. Again, before you start any of these things, you have to make sure that there's no, inherent physical problem with the person. They should check with their doctor and all that. But if it's just something that kind of rears its ugly head every now and again, you can gently try a stretch like that. It'll help you open up those knots.
Next question.
One of the students said that her Alexander technique teacher said her paraspinous is the source of her discomfort, and she was wondering, is there any exercise that can help with that?
I didn't hear the first part of the question, sorry.
Oh, sorry. The student asked, is there any exercise that can help with discomfort in, it's called paraspinous.
The peristenesis.
Oh, sorry, peristenesis on the body.
Muscle.
Yeah.
And is there any exercise to help with that?
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, all of this sort of helps with that. What did the Alexander teacher recommend?
She didn't say anything. She just said my teacher said that's the source. and she was wondering for like suggestion from you.
Your brother. Tell that person to email me and I'll get back to them.
Okay.
I mean, there's a bunch of things you could do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Again, that's a little tricky when you can't see the person. But yeah. Tell them to email me.
Okay. Thank you.
Or is it this peristinus? Okay, next question.
It says, do you have a preference for your students to use shoulder rests versus sponges? Do you recommend one over the other for students with any tension problems? We talked about this with Stacia, but what's your view?
Something clicked on right in the middle of that sentence. Can you say it to me one more time?
Sure. We talked about this with Stacia, but this question is geared towards you.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference with your students to use shoulder rests versus sponges? Do you recommend one over the other for students with many tension problems?
This is a hot topic, and I saw your podcast, your webcast last time. So I know that it is. For me, I think it has to do with the relationship of the head and the shoulder and the instrument, and that's how I have always addressed that issue. If some students have super sloping shoulders and that they need a little support. In fact, Erica over here has been experimenting with chin rest and shoulder rest, different sizes to sort of help alleviate some of those issues. So the answer to that question is that I always look at the alignment of those three things before I make a decision like that. I have found good sponges and I have found good shoulder rests, and I also have students with really long necks that don't need anything. I think it's all about whether you can do that balance or not. So. Stacia, what do you think about that? You don't like them.
Huh?
You don't like them, shoulder rests.
Yeah, you know what? For some people, they work. You know,
Yeah.
like I said, I have a couple of kids that it's the only thing that's worked for them. But I think the majority of the people can find other things that just don't lock into place.
Right. And that's a really good point, because that's part of what we watch for, is that students can sometimes, they clamp this thing down. They clamp the violin into their jaw, between their jaw and their shoulder. It's like a vice or something like that, and you don't want that vice. You want a little flexibility there, you know?
Yes. Okay, good. Next question.
I have a question. Someone is asking if you have any experience with sharp pain in the fingertips when pressing the strings.
Oh, this is so interesting. No, I don't have any experience with that my own self, but I know that people have that. You know, I think when that happens to people that they should go to their doctor first, because sometimes it can be, like Raynaud's can do that, the Raynaud's disease, where you kind of have restricted blood flow there. But I have heard about this with people that don't have that. I think sometimes that comes from super tight shoulders and arms. And so when I see that, first of all, I send my students to a doctor. I've rarely seen it, like with my own students, but I would send them to a doctor, number one. And then the next thing is, if everything comes out clean and bill of health, then I start doing stuff to open up this shoulder area. This shoulder area can just kill us. I mean, we can really lock in all sorts of weird positions that way.
I wonder if pressing too hard would cause any of that.
Sometimes it does.
We had a student here who he had some calluses on his fingertips.
Yeah.
And he thought it'd be a good idea to peel them off.
Ugh. Really?
And then, yeah, right. And then he couldn't play for a few months because he had incredible pain.
Oh my gosh.
He learned a little lesson about that, but
Yeah, apparently.
yeah.
But you know, even like sometimes when students do that, when they press really hard like that, I mean, I still feel like there's a lot of tightness, like in the bicep and
Sure,
and
definitely.
you know, yeah.
It's all connected, so it's not just like this is going to be tight. It's going to be all through.
Right.
And usually on the other side as well.
And I think the reason I actually started this the applied lesson structure this way is because I feel like violin teachers, not all, but a lot of violin teachers have in the past just dealt with the small muscle movement in their fingers. But I think what I do is I try to open it up to the big muscle groups and go from the big muscle groups down to the small muscle groups. Yeah.
Good. Next question.
That was actually part of the next question. Especially with our little students, it's hard to get them to activate the release of the hand because our hands are built to squeeze. So do you have anything in particular that you would recommend to release tension in those smaller muscle groups, or would you recommend going through this sequence of exercises first?
Okay, well, the first thing that I want to say is the whole method and the workshops and stuff are for 13 years old on up. So I am not very experienced with below that age group. You guys are the experts on that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that like with us, we make sure we're always swinging and tapping and, you know, shaking our head and all that, making sure that their body is loose. But then whenever we release a finger, we make sure that the only finger that has any pressure in it is the one that's down, and it's just enough to make the sound. And the minute the finger comes off, it becomes a wet spaghetti noodle. So we're always on it. I think that's probably the best way to address that. And
sometimes, actually, you see how interesting you are? I totally agree with you. Sometimes students actually pop up. They pop up too high and then they lock it this way. And so, I mean, part of that whole training of the left hand, right, is to make sure that when you're articulating, you only bring it up to a certain point. I was always taught above to the base of the next nail. That's your articulation, instead of this fly back kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's super tension causing, absolutely. Yeah.
Good. Next question.
The next question, sorry, I'm being sick. The student asks, do you tell your student to consult with physicians before they take a year course on the program, exercise program?
Okay, so your voice is going in and out on me?
Sorry.
Sorry.
The student asks, do you tell all your students to consult with their physicians before taking part of your exercise program?
Did you hear, Hal? You ask all of your students to see a physician before doing your exercise program.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry, my voice is dying.
No, you know, I think it might be the microphone or something. Because it goes, whoa, yeah, okay. Do I ask all my students to see a doctor before they do the exercise program? The students that I am taking through this method, I always look and see what the problem is. We have a discussion about what has been afflicting them for a while, and then I always ask them whether they've seen a doctor about it. If they is it a broken bone? Is it have they been diagnosed with tendinitis or something like that? So yes is the answer to that question. Yeah, they do have to. Yeah. Especially now that I'm teaching college kids. So some people have had these problems for a while, and they probably have been to doctors or chiropractors. You have, didn't you? Did you go to a lot? Come over here. This is Erica.
Hi.
So tell us your story.
Well, I've had issues for about 7 years now, and it's been on and off. Diagnosed as tendinitis, carpal tunnel. I had some issues with chronic nerve pain, although that was partly related to a dairy allergy that I found out I had. And then I've also had setup issues. And so when I met Mr. Grossman 2 summers ago now, I was only able to play anywhere between 5 and 20 minutes a day because my muscles just couldn't handle that much endurance. And so my issues kind of snowballed into more of a general just kind of muscle fatigue.
So how much are you playing now?
I'm playing probably anywhere between 45 minutes and 90 minutes, depending on the day. But
you're playing in orchestra.
Yeah, and I'm playing in orchestra, so that's
playing,
about 2 hours.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. And so Erica's actually going through the method with me. She's only been here for like a month and a half. I had a really interesting story of a student that transferred to me who was basically not able to play for a whole year. And this was a really advanced violinist, very talented, but her muscles had just like totally locked up on her, and she couldn't play for a whole year. And so she came and we went through a whole year of this, and she was up to 3 hours a day. So you can tell your body to realign itself. You can tell your body to relax and let the natural things happen for you. And that's part of the applied lesson thing is to kind of reteach the muscles that they don't have to lock up like this, that they can be long and fluid, and that they can play in a relaxed manner.
Can I ask a question? I noticed that when her setup, so did you guys go through different shoulder rest and chin rest to help her with her setup, Erica?
Well, what happened to her? Hey, she should do it again.
What?
Oh, okay. I don't know, suddenly it was just blocked up. So I asked Erica to play badly. I asked her to show bad alignment right now so that I could talk about the muscle groups.
Mm-hmm.
But she's way more aligned right now than she was. If you turn around.
No, I was just curious about, in the beginning, did you guys, when she first came to you, did you have to change shoulder rest and chin rest and go through that?
I'm in the process, actually, of changing. I started out with a center-mounted chin rest. I've been using one of those for the last 3-4 years, and I'm going back to using more of a left side. And I'm experimenting with different heights and angles, and then trying to figure out a shoulder rest that will, or a shoulder pad that will support it eventually. But it's kind of a work in progress right now.
Yeah. Good.
It's interesting too about. I mean, Erica's sort of on a thing about this. I mean, she's been looking at a lot of different shoulder pads and chin rests, and I'm glad that I can be with her while she's doing that. I do know students that this becomes an obsession, and they try hundreds of shoulder pads and hundreds of chin rests in every single combination possible. You know, that's when I think the first thing we got to look at is that relationship between the head, shoulder, and the instrument.
And I found that you told me that a lot of my issues came from the raising up the shoulder more than the setup, and so we've been kind of working with the setup to kind of make it so that I don't raise it up as much, but that's still the main issue, is learning to let go of that shoulder while I play.
Right.
Okay, great. Let's have some more questions.
I think it's my turn. Where'd it go? One of the students asked, how do you incorporate good breathing into a student's playing, especially if they seem to forget to breathe while playing?
I love that question. Thank you so much. Whoever that person is, I love that person. Okay. All right. So, you know, the thing is, string players like hardly ever breathe when they play, and that's where the you know, this second workshop that I do called "Breathe Your Way to Better Playing" is it's just for violinists. Well, it's for string players, really, but it's a way to incorporate both of those things. So, how do I do that? Well, I can't reveal all my secrets, but I would say that I have to tell you how this all happened. This is like such a cool story. Okay, so this is like years ago, and I was teaching a student who was getting ready for a pretty big competition. Terrific violinist, kind of nervous. She played her program through and almost like collapsed after she played because she didn't breathe once in 30 minutes. Not once, and she got really lightheaded, and I know you guys think like, oh, come on, how could that be possible? Oh, yeah, it's possible. It's this really shallow breathing thing, or it's no breathing at all. And so that is definitely part of the lesson structure. I would say a fast fix on that is to incorporate some breath with the bow. I think you can incorporate those two things together. And if a student is very tight and can't manage that, you can put breath marks in the music where the phrasing would be natural. I think it has to go along with the phrasing. But just put a little comma or something so they go, and then they can do that. Yeah. But it's super important to get that moving as soon as possible, I think. Even with little kids, I think.
Yeah, I talk a lot about the bow is our air. It's like if we were a singer. I also sing, so I
Right.
talk about breath a lot.
Yeah.
Good. That's a good question.
It's a great question. Yeah. For older kids, also I had found, like in a performance situation, if they're tight and jittery and all that, if they kind of make some guttural sound with their throats, I think Dorothy DeLay actually was an advocate of this. Especially especially if you hear old recordings, you always hear like pianists and stuff moaning while they're playing that. But if you do a little bit of that, it can actually release a lot of tension in this upper body thing. But I think for little kids, I don't know how old that person was or who they were addressing, what age group, but yeah, it's got to be done as early as possible.
Good. Next question.
Someone is asking about if there are any specific series of practices or stretches for finger muscles. They feel pain in the second joint of their index finger.
That's interesting. So, yes. I mean, I think that there's just some nice, again, assuming that everything is okay. There are some stretches for the hands. One basic thing is to spread your fingers really wide and get as much distance between your thumb and pinky as possible, and then release, and stretch, and release, and stretch, and release. And then, kind of like what I did when we did this behind the head, if you take your fingertips, you can bring your fingers down to the base of your palm, like this, and up, and down, and again, leave your thumb out of it, and then take your fingertips and come down right to the base, like that. Those are also really good things to do. Boy, but I wonder about people that spend a lot of time on their computer, moving the mouse around like this. It can, right? Yeah, I know. And this is super interesting, but now there's this new thing that chiropractors talk about called forward head syndrome. And forward head syndrome is when you bring your head forward like this because people are walking and texting all the time. Yeah. So here's the deal. The thing is, as violinists and violists, we already have forward head syndrome. We already have a little forward head syndrome. So you've got to, this walking and texting thing. I mean, if you're going to do it, if you have to do it, do some of these stretches for the neck. That whole thing with the neck. Or the levator scapula thing. So, yeah.
Okay, good. Next question.
There's a question from a violist who plays on a pretty large viola, and she gets regular, I think she's talking about chiropractic adjustments. She's talking about the ribs under her left scapula. She says she needs these adjustments once every 1 or 2 weeks. So I was wondering if you could talk about what might be going on there, and then also some advice on how you feel about chiropractors, how they can be beneficial for musicians, and any cautionary words there.
This is a big problem. It's a great question. It's a big problem. Again, from my work, I find that people don't have enough, that they have to really think about their core and lifting up here so that there is support. There's enough support down here so that this can stay really active. And I think violas often have a tendency to let this down and maybe bend over to that side that they're holding the viola. I mean, that can be super tiny. Plus, their spine is going like this, right? So all of this is based on, proper spinal alignment, and it's a question of lifting up and making, sometimes people talk about having a little space in the armpit, but really it's just a question of lifting up. But I think the bigger deal is to get the core strong enough to be able to support that. It's really hard to do this without seeing these people, but, I'm just saying.
How do you feel about chiropractic?
Well, chiropractors are great. I mean, massage therapists are great. It's all great, whatever works for you. I mean, those people can be experts. I mean, there's good chiropractors and less good chiropractors. I mean, one thing that I have found is that if you can find someone that is sensitive to musicians' needs, I think it makes a huge difference. But I think whatever works for people, go for it. Whatever helps, go. Yeah.
Okay, good. Next question.
Okay. This person is asking about lower back pain. They asked if they should sit, or maybe you know of exercises that would help with the lower back, or what could be causing it.
When they're sitting?
No, in general, lower back pain and sitting instead of standing.
Oh, I see. I see. Well, we in the workshop we talk about how to sit properly, like for people that are playing chamber music or playing an orchestra, and we talk about for those people that are sitting to make sure that you're sitting on your sits bones. I talk a little bit about the pelvis, what the pelvis looks like, and where those sits bones are, because you want to get on your sits bones to have proper spinal alignment. The proper spinal alignment with a firm foundation in your core can alleviate a lot of back issues. I've always been an advocate of practicing standing up. I think it's better. But again, it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier. I think that you've got to support yourself here in this core area. I have to say that over the last decade and a half, I've seen more people that are weak in that area playing. I don't know. I think it's an important thing that we have to think about all the time. But oftentimes, that's where the lower back pain can come. And the middle back pain can come, too. It's this rounding of the back thing. So, you know.
Next question.
The next question is, are there any other teachers of the Grossman method applied lessons or workshops in various locations?
Not yet, but there will be. Oh, yes, there will be. Actually, you guys are the very first people that we're even talking about the method itself. I'm about to write it down, and then next summer it's going to be the first teacher training thing. So, yeah. And right now I'm the only one doing the workshops, but I hope that will, I hope that I can farm this out to people like Erica and stuff like that so that I can live in my fabulous house in Hawaii. But that's not happening yet. But yeah.
Okay, next question.
There's a question about expressive movements while playing. So there's someone who says that their students tend to be a little bit frozen or stiff. So what are your thoughts about that? You know that I'm a Milton student, so there are differences between being stiff and being economical, but how do you feel about expressive movements while playing?
I like that, Caroline. Yes, I do know that. Okay. Boy, let's see. Stiff. Well, you know, I think that there's like a plumb line while a person is playing, and you can move around that plumb line. This must be like a little person that's being like a straight soldier or something like that.
That was how I took it. Someone who's just really stuck and still.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I would have to see that person. I would have to see that to really address that. Yeah. Usually what I hear about is the other problem, where kids are like flying all over the place when they're playing. And that can be very disruptive to what's happening in their violin playing, actually, because they're throwing off their whole balance up here. If they can keep their balance up here and they want to do that, well, you know, whatever. But, yeah. But I don't know. I mean, a stiff person, I don't know. I'd have to see the kid. Yeah.
Okay. Next question.
Okay, this is going back to the breath question. Someone asked if you could demonstrate a breath and bow activity you would do.
Okay. Yes. We're standing up. Okay, so at the very heart, at the very base of that workshop is the concept of, and Erica hasn't done this with me, so she's on the instrument. Okay, so you guys, in the old days, when bows were arced like that, they were naturally heavy at the frog, and then they were lighter at the tip, and so the sound naturally dissipated, right? So then we got this guy Tourt, and he made this bow that would sustain the sound. And we spent so much of our time learning how to sustain the sound. But in the old days, like when Bach wrote his solo works and all that, he did this on an arced bow. So go ahead and pull down bow and just let it sound dissipate. That's what was happening. So when I start this workshop, we inhale and then exhale on the way down, and then exhale. Now start your inhale, and now exhale, dissipate, inhale, exhale. Okay. And so, very nice. And so what we do with that is that we talk a little bit about how a person breathes, what's happening physiologically here. You'll notice that Erica's chest rises and falls, and we can use that to help this motion right here. That's like, you can relax now. That's step one of that process. And then we go through some breathing exercises where you can control your breath. You can make your exhales long or short, your inhales long or short, and you know, after 30 minutes of doing this, then I would have Erica stand up and play the beginning of the Sibelius Violin Concerto, something that's long and lyrical, and we learn how to infuse the breath work with that to make the phrase spin and to make kind of a more cohesive thing. The second movement of the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto, first movement, that's a wonderful example where we can talk about the inhaling and exhaling with the bow. It's also something that I call bow coupling, which helps connect the phrases. And we do that bow coupling thing along with the breath control. It can be fantastic. Now, let me just say that right now, one time when I was first giving this class, I was doing this example with a cellist, actually, and the cellist was playing da 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 da, and then he said to me, "Am I supposed to go?" And I said, "No, you're not supposed to do that." So it's just a question of infusing the breath when it's, you know, appropriate, like for long melodic lines. And even within like a détaché passage or something like that, you can use the breath to help carry you through a long phrase. It's not that you're going to do it on every single note. It's just that you might pick your time when you're going to do that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You should go through the whole workshop and make more sense.
Good. Next question.
Hal, I actually have a question of my own about dealing with a student with an injury and how you would incorporate these exercises a little bit differently, or if you would use different stretches, or if you would just do them to a different degree, or how would you cope with that?
You mean an injury like a broken bone?
No, maybe just more like a muscular tension, something like that. Maybe tendinitis, something like that.
Right. Well, look, I'm not a doctor,
Mm-hmm.
and so you always refer to what the doctor says, because they know. I think that whenever you have an injury like that, tendinitis or carpal tunnel or something like that, it has to be really completely healed. These are things to, my whole teaching thing is to get basically a healthy person who might have some anxiety when they play, has some tension issues when they play, maybe some setup things that have caused the muscles to grab like this and to help open that thing up. I think if you start to do that, you can avoid some of those tendinitis and carpal tunnel issues. But once a person has that, you know, you've got to do the rice thing, the rest and the ice and the whole thing. And it's got to be really completely healed. But I always defer to the doctor at that point. Yeah. So I would encourage that.
Good. Next question.
Sorry, I was trying to get my microphone to work. So can you speak a little bit, you've touched on it, but maybe in a little bit more detail about the process beginning to play and practice again once you've recovered from an injury and how that works, the rebuilding process?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I'm assuming you're talking about someone who maybe had tendonitis or...
Yeah, someone who had to take a hiatus from playing, and then once they're ready to play again, how do you do that safely?
Yeah, I think that you start really with slow spurts. Like maybe, let's say they were pretty injured with tendonitis, which is a big generic term, you know, it's an overused thing, primarily anyway. And they've been off for 6 months. Okay, so now they're coming back to the violin. I think that they need to start maybe 1 minute, take a break, 5 minutes, then build it up 2 minutes. I mean, I think it's got to be a little bit of playing with a lot of rest, a little bit of playing with a lot of rest. And I think that you have to have a structure with that. So I don't know, like maybe the first week you're only doing 5 minutes a day, but you're probably not even doing 5 minutes at the same time. You're spacing that 5 minutes up. Again, if you think of yourself as an athlete, if you think of as musicians as athletes, it's a question of rebuilding the muscle, rebuilding strength, and rebuilding the elasticity of the muscle. And it's got to be done slowly. Just like if you hadn't been working out with pumping iron for 6 months, you wouldn't go into the gym and start doing 3 sets of, you know, 100 pounds or something like that. You wouldn't be able to move the next day. And because we're dealing with smaller muscle groups, we have to be super careful about it. And furthermore, we always use our fingers. We're always eating or writing or typing or something like that. So, you know, these are pretty active anyway. And that's why we have to be super careful when we start playing the fiddle again.
Good. Okay, I think that we probably need to wrap up. It's already a little after 10. So is there anything else that you'd like to leave us with, Hal?
Well, I just think this is the greatest thing. I'm so proud of you for doing this, Stacia. I mean, this is great. This is so important. This is so important to offer something like this. I think if anyone has any questions about my end of things, they can go to my website, thegrossmanmethod.com. They can see some videos of me doing these stretches with one of my other students. And feel free to contact me if you are interested in a workshop or if you have any questions. I do the best I can.
Well, thank you so much for being here. This has been very informative. And I can't wait to do some of these things with my students.
Yay!
Yes, really appreciate it.
Super great.
Okay, good. So what I just want to leave everybody with is that thank you for attending our second Google Hangout. We have another one coming up. Let's see, I can barely read my own handwriting, but I think it says October 19th. It's a Sunday, and it'll be in the evening. And it's with Mimi Zweig. So that's going to be a great one, too. So we look forward to seeing you all then, and we hope you'll have a wonderful day. And thanks again to our team, and thank you, Hal and Erica, for being here with us today.
Thanks a lot.
All righty. Take care. Bye.
Bye.